On one. Yeah.
All
One.
right. So
What do you got so far?
yeah. So our poll this morning was: do you agree with teachers searching the phones of students in schools without parental consent? We had 31 people voting on the poll this morning, and of the 31 people, 24 said no, they do not agree with teachers being able to search phones of students without parental consent, and 7 people said yes. So the nays were by far the majority with regard to this particular poll.
Yeah. All right, while we're waiting for our guest to log on, just want to bring your attention to a concert that's coming up. That's called Staying Alive. It is on the 9th of the 7th, this is the 7th month?
But at O2 Park, yes, it's the 9th of July.
The 9th of July, which is...
Remember I talked about this yesterday.
Aimed at raising funds for Daniel Diffenthaler for kidney transplant and also for the National Kidney Foundation. So it's going to be featuring Kes, Tree Canal, a host of artists coming together to raise funds for that. So if you want to go check out islandtickets.com/event/staying alive the concert and support a worthy cause.
Yeah. Even if you can't attend, at least buy,
buy a ticket
or ticket or two, and that's support, just the support, because that issue of kidney issues and renal failure is a substantial issue in Trinidad. There's so many people on dialysis, so many. I remember before my dad died, his kidneys had failed, and I remember
my father died from renal failure also.
Yeah, and my father couldn't. I remember when I was looking to get, in terms of dialysis and access to dialysis. I mean, this is years ago, so I assume it has improved, but it was horrendous. And I mean, the public health sector told me, because he was older, but he wasn't that old. But I mean, he must have been in his 60s, if so old, at the time. And I remember they telling me, unless he is a child or a younger person, they're not going to do it. And I remember
you do like once every 2 weeks, and that can't sustain your life.
And then you're looking at the private, but even the private dialysis was booked up.
Yeah.
And I remember a doctor telling me, does he have any reason to live? And I said, what a strange question.
What?
And he said, yes. And he said, because, meaning, rather than spending all of that money.
It's extremely expensive, yeah.
He's saying, rather than spending all of that money for an outcome that to him was inevitable.
Yeah.
Is it that there is a wedding? Is it there is something coming up for which you want him to be present? That was the kind of conversation.
Yeah, that was the level of conversation also with us.
Yeah.
That the doctor said, I know it's your loved one, but it's extremely expensive and really unsustainable. And persons over 60 are not going to get a kidney transplant that readily.
No.
Unless you have a family member. I know when I worked on CNMG with Jessie May Vento, she had donated a kidney to her brother, but her brother was in his 20s. And we chronicled the journey, and it was quite interesting because she had to get in shape. She was found to be a match, and she chronicled the journey on television, and she gave a kidney to her brother, which was really the gift of life. He was in his mid to late 20s, so I mean, his prognosis was good. But when you're over 50, over 60, they tend to, one, have the dialysis machines available to younger people, and two, prognosis becomes less promising as the older you get, obviously, like most other ailments.
I have a friend who was in England. He had that renal failure issue, and he was on dialysis, and he was coming to Trinidad, and he was wondering how much it was going to cost. But now I think you maybe have better access. And this was a couple of years ago, but he has since gotten a transplant. But he's in England. He's over 50. He's not 60 yet, but he got a transplant maybe about a year ago or so, and he's fine.
Yep.
Fine so
Usually
far.
pretty standard now, kidney transplants and stuff like that.
Yeah. So support Staying Alive. Go to islandtickets.com and you could search for the event by date 2. It's on the 9th of July. You'll see Staying Alive. I think it's $300 a ticket.
Yeah. Early
And
bird
you-
tickets, initial offer is $300.
Yeah. And of course, it'll be Cass. I know Cass is
Free
performing.
Canal, Freetown Collective.
Freetown Collective, yeah. Well, Cass is her brother, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know Daniel so well. So,
Go and support.
Yeah, go and support. Support.
And it's
Just
also
buy
for
the
the,
tickets,
for
'cause
the
you can buy
Kidney
those tickets.
Foundation
Those
in
tickets are
general.
available online. So even those of you who live abroad who can support, because some of it is going to go to the Kidney Foundation. So if you can support abroad by just buying a ticket, that's fine too. On staying alive. I don't think she has a GoFundMe as yet. I saw somebody asking if she had a GoFundMe, but she doesn't have a GoFundMe.
So, Can, what is the status, sir?
Well, I'm trying to reach Mr. Attorney at Law Martin George, and I'm not getting him.
Now, not interestingly enough, I was going through the article with regard to of course, now I'm not going to find it, am I? I'm not going to find it.
What article is that?
Concerning the same issue of the walkout by
The opposition.
the opposition. Maybe it was in. I've been reading so many papers this morning that I'm confusing myself. This is the face of a confused.
Not difficult.
Yeah, I'm confusing myself.
One of the other issues I know that's coming to the fore in a short time because one of the principals had contacted me. Shabaka Kambon had contacted me last week to say that he was reviving the issue. I think it formed a part of a motion in Parliament to have some statues removed in Port of Spain because of the atrocities the persons supposedly.
I know they were big on the Columbus statue.
Yeah, and there's so many dissenting views, and that some people feel, well, it's part of our history, so to rip down every statue of every colonial figure that possibly committed atrocities, then what will become of our history? That's one approach to it. The other approach is that they are so heinous that they should not have no statue in Port of Spain. What do you think?
We have gone through this before because we had him on when it was a hot topic. And I think there is justification for removing the statues, even if you want. Yeah, even if you want to put them somewhere else, like in a museum or whatever, as to contextualize the history, as you were referencing, Paul. They don't have to be necessarily public and in public. They can be.
So then you have to change the name of these squares too, then.
Well, they've done that
Lord
already.
Harris and
They changed King George. They changed King George V to Nelson Mandela. Yeah.
So like Columbus Square and
neither of whom are Trinidadian.
and Woodford Square because they're all colonial relics, sir.
Well, I don't know that all colonial. I don't know that the objective is that all colonial names be changed.
No, but I mean,
I think they were particularly zoning in on people who,
Columbus
from a
was one.
historical perspective, they felt had done certain things. So I know Christopher Columbus was. I know Christopher Columbus
He's one of them.
was the one that Shabaka had spoken to us about when he came on the show. That was what they were dealing with, Columbus. I know some people have anyway, and I'm not opening that Pandora's box.
So we'll send Shabaka number to Steve so that maybe in the absence of Martin George, you call Shabaka because we ain't getting trade Martin George this morning.
Well, he's on the phone right now. But
yeah, so I mean, there's some that some people consider particularly egregious. That the history was so bad that nobody wants you in no square in Port of Spain or in Trinidad. You could put up somebody who indigenous would have made a significant contribution, over the years. Like the Wendell Stevens Square or something.
I wrote a play already, called The Breaking of Lord Harris, which is based on that Lord Harris Square. I must do that play again. I only ever did it once.
And last time it's used with Lord Harris too.
It wasn't historical.
A lot of But think
It was
about it.
about-
They're from a colonial lineage where, at one point, slavery was legal.
Yeah.
It might not have been ethical, but it was legal. So they were doing what was legal at the time. They were running plantations and owning slaves and doing what slave owners do. But there's some people who feel, well, at the end of the day, it may have been unethical, but it's part of the history of the country. Steve, what are we doing? You saying nothing?
I'm trying to reach Martin here, and then I'm trying to get Shabaka. I think you said Shabaka. My volume is low.
Yeah, because at this point,
Shabaka is not an early riser.
Not true.
But while we be deciding that, while we deciding that, if I may just read a little bit, that Imber, of course, that's the acting Prime Minister, Colm Imber, was peppered with questions which he said was not in a position to answer on the controversy involving Armour's failure to recuse himself and his subsequent disqualification by a Miami court from representing this country in the Piaco International Airport corruption case. Armour, the subject of all the exchanges between the acting PM and the opposition, was in the House during PM's questions. When he subsequently rose to address the House on the Bills of Exchange Amendment Bill, the opposition walked out. So this is what I was referencing for when I said they eventually did walk out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that issue with Reginald Armour, Senior Counsel, is before the Law Association today. And the way forward on the issue regarding Attorney General Reginald Armour may be determined during a monthly meeting of the Council of the Law Association expected to be held today. Some members may have to recuse themselves from the discussion, however, says LAT President Sophia Choate, Senior Counsel. The association was over the weekend criticized by Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West and Attorney Dinesh Rambali for being silent on the issue involving Armour. So that's another part of it that's going on.
Yeah. Martin George is going to join us in a minute.
Interesting to see how this one plays out. Reginald Armour, Senior Counsel, is relatively new as Attorney General. I think he's like 6 weeks on the job or something like that.
March 16th, I believe. Middle of March.
March 16th? Is so early?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in March. That's what he said when he was saying that he has never seen a member of his superior.
And that you want to play back the clip, Steve? That shady comment that Reginald Armour made regarding Mrs. Prasad Bissessar.
I have it right here. Hold on.
Say, before I make my few remarks on this very important bill, that I was impressed today to see the honorable member of Superior present in the House, because I've been here since, I believe it is the 16th of March, and I have not been accustomed to seeing her in the House.
That's why I got the 16th of March.
And my concern at not having seen her before was exacerbated today as I saw her being assisted as she left the House, and I'm concerned that she might not be well. I wish her well.
You need that whole umbrella for that, eh?
Yeah, what?
You need a parasol for that statement. Because it's so shady. You understand? Yeah, whole house and an umbrella for that statement. The politics, let me tell you. Never a dull moment.
Oh, good.
Okay, well, let's take some calls away with Martin George joining us. Sorry?
Are you there today?
Yes, I'm supposed to be there. I've been given an order to attend.
Oh, you've been given an order to attend.
Yes, it's a court, you get when they send the order paper to you, you only 2 reasons you can't attend, Illness or absence from the jurisdiction, otherwise you have to find your tail there. It's an order paper to attend a court sitting. The parliament is a court. So if you don't go on your went and lime, you could find yourself in contempt of court. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Okay. So now you know. And the numbers are
222-TALK, 222-8255-612-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099, absolutely toll free. So just in case you wanted some context of when all of this happened, because you may be hearing about the issue with the court in Miami, on May 2nd, a Miami court reportedly disqualified Armour and the U.S. law firm Sequoia Law, which was hired by government to participate in civil forfeiture proceedings linked to the Piarco International Airport's alleged corruption matter. I think it was a Judge Perez, I believe. And he said, nope, they disqualified. He disqualified the law firm too. Mm-hmm. So the state had to hire a different law firm. And I believe they're swapping in Al-Rawi.
Because Armour Senior Counsel cannot represent the state.
So this is what caused the entire issue. Because that judge said
I
no.
Think Minister Imber says, Acting Prime Minister Imber says, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the state can substitute in civil cases, but the criminal cases are in the name of the Attorney General. Is that it? Or is it the other way around?
It'll probably be the Attorney General for criminal cases before. Well, criminal cases where? In the United States?
Yeah.
Generally, generally we wouldn't be involved in criminal cases in the United States.
Yeah, it's here. Have to be here.
Recording in progress.
All right, so there he's getting there.
We wouldn't be involved.
There he is. Good morning to you, Mr. Martin George.
Morning.
Oh, how are you?
I thought it was radio.
It is radio.
It is radio.
It is modern
video as well.
It is modern radio.
You see, that's what happened in Tobago. You went for an early swim or something.
It's modern radio.
And we know how it is when you live in the
I see you have on your political T-shirt.
No. It's a crime stopper T-shirt. Don't try that.
What I see, so I jump here. So I say, hey, you didn't make the announcement.
I say, hey, Wendell joining us this morning.
I say, then I saw Crime Stoppers on the.
It's a good time to join that party in Tobago to help with the rebuilding process. Is that?
It's okay.
I say, hey, Martin George, I didn't hear the announcement, and then I saw Crime Stoppers. I say, okay, fine, okay. Morning, Martin George. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Well, we are discussing the issue of the Honorable Attorney General Senior Counsel, and we heard your comment that we played in the news yesterday. For those who may not have heard it, give us a synopsis of your perspective on this evolving issue.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Paul, I think that, it's unfortunate that what we've seen thus far appears to be a lack of clarity and a lack of transparency in terms of a more fulsome explanation from the Office of the Attorney General. I did see a statement that was put out, I think, about a week ago. But beyond that, it appears that the response that has come from the Attorney General is that he has nothing further to say. And I don't think it's the type of matter where you can take refuge in silence. I think this is the type of scenario that demands a greater clarity and explanation to the public as to the circumstances of what would have led to this, and in fact some of the actual details, because if your factual dots do not add up and the timelines do not mesh, then of course greater explanation is required.
But aren't we past that point, Martin? Because the judge, Justice Perez, already in Miami, has said you're disqualified, and the law firm was also disqualified in hearing the matter. So the state had to a judge is a king of his court, and the state had to now retain a new law firm, which I think the opposition was asking, well, how much is that costing? How much did they pay for a retainer for that new law firm, etc.? Of course, the current acting prime minister said he didn't have that information. He wasn't briefed on that. Mm-hmm. But isn't it past the point of being discussive about wanting to know what the facts are? Because the judge has already made a kind of a decision, but hasn't made a decision on the issue. How do you interpret
Well,
the judge?
that relates to the court in Miami, but there's
Yeah.
a court of public opinion in Trinidad and Tobago. There's the court of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and that's where we're calling for the accountability. Because you see, regardless of the decision that has already been taken in Miami, the fact of the matter is that there have emerged some troubling details and some questions which I think remain unanswered. I have seen issues raised as to the timeline, and that's why I'm raising the question that way, in terms of when were you appointed senior counsel, because that's a matter of public record. That's not something that there can be any ambiguity in anyone's mind about, least of all you yourself who were appointed. So if at the material date and time you had already been appointed senior counsel, then there's no way that anyone could realistically think that they could pass themselves off as a junior counsel or a note taker, having already been publicly and officially. Remember, that appointment is something that is done by the president. So, I mean, there's no question as to when is the date and time that you became senior counsel. So, all I'm saying is that maybe there is need for some explanation in terms of some questions that I have seen.
But even in with that said, and I agree with you where that is concerned, the issue of the Attorney General in the affidavit saying, I represented, I think it's Mr. Kwaitang. I was part of Mr. Kwaitang's representation team at the time. I was a junior lawyer at the time. And, quote, I do not recollect any of the issues related to the case. Now, and the judge, of course, has thrown it out and disqualified himself and the law firm, Mr. Amor and the law firm. Now, in the furtherance of what anyone would consider natural justice, the fact that you say you don't recollect when you may have been exposed to material information related to the defense team at the time, and now you are prosecuting on behalf of the state, does that mesh? Can we reconcile that?
The fact that you may not recollect would ab initio seek to clear the way to say, well, look, I am not conflicted because I don't currently recollect material. But as you say, having been exposed to the material, you may have had notes, you may have had documents, you may have had papers, you may have had recordings, you may have had a transcript of evidence, so therefore the fact that you don't recollect, that isn't the entire, the entire area that we were looking at. We were looking also at all the elements of evidence and material that you could have had access to. So you may not recollect everything that was said, but you may have documents, files, papers, and that's where the element of prejudice can come in and the conflict of interest.
And you may not have recollected now, but suppose in 2 weeks you remember something.
And your memory could be jogged, your memory could be...
Yeah, exactly.
You could say, well, look, remember we had this meeting at this office and, you said ABC, and then you might say, oh, yes, I do remember. So
that's how memory works.
There is the potential. There is the potential.
How serious?
What I'm saying, Paul, is the type of scenario that I think avoidance would have been the best option ab initio. In other words, recognizing the challenge, it would appear that the more prudent course would have been to say, hey, listen, you know what? There's the risk, there's the potential. And I mean, not just the potential for the defendants, but the potential for the state of Trinidad and Tobago and its matter to be possibly compromised. So therefore, maybe I should step back. I mean, that's just my thinking as a layperson.
But how serious do you see this issue in terms of Reginald Amor, senior counsel? Because, of course, he would have been fairly recently made AG. He would have had a rich legal practice prior to becoming to the AG. I mean rich as in substantive. And
I thought you meant it the other way also.
I meant substantive.
That's not exclusive.
So he would have been involved in various matters. And of course, this one has cropped up. He disclosed that he did do some level of representation, however he couched it. And the judge says, well, okay, I'm disqualifying you, I'm disqualifying the firm that represented you. Because I think I suppose the judge is just saying, for out of fairness, both of you all need to go, and new firm has to come in and a new representative of the government. But the opposition has now read it as being a serious breach on the part of the AG, and well, serious, and of course they're looking at it through the political lens too, and they're saying, well, you should resign or you should be fired. Do you think it meets that standard?
Well, the fact of the matter is that, you see, it depends on the proof that we have. If it is that it is proven that there was some misrepresentation, and I'm trying to choose my words as nicely and as politely as I could, if there was some misrepresentation of the facts before a court of law, and the fact that it's an international court and outside our territorial waters is of no moment, because when you are representing Trinidad and Tobago, whichever court you're in, as Attorney General, you are representing the country of TNT, and you are doing so as the third highest office holder in the land. So that duty and responsibility, you are saddled with it regardless of, where your representation goes. So if you are representing Trinidad and Tobago, and in it, on a personal level, if it emerges that there was some material misrepresentation as Attorney General, then I think there can be questions that deserve answers in terms of whether this has now compromised, the state of Trinidad and Tobago in a sense of, the pursuit of the matter, and also, I guess, in terms of one's, personal integrity and ethics. And these are questions that I think ought to be engaging some level of attention if it is that there is evidence of misrepresentation.
But basically, you're saying, is senior counsel and AG lying in terms of the circumstances of his credentials at the time of the case? And I mean, I would find it unbelievable on a certain level that a senior counsel would misrepresent his status, which is what you're going to, at the time of the case when he was...
With something too easy to check. With something too easy to
exactly,
verify.
I find that pretty hard to believe.
Well, and that's why I have always been very careful in my comments, and I've said that I would like him to have the opportunity to present the clarity, and that's all I've been saying. I've not.
Well, I think it's more than him now.
Accusation at all, and I never would.
It's clearly now further than him now, because as you said, he, as the third highest office holder in the land, represented the state of Trinidad and Tobago, and because of the questions now being raised, the government as a whole, the public deserves a clear delineation of the facts, the timelines, so as to clear the name and the office of the Attorney General completely.
Paul, that's all I've been saying, and that's all I've been asking for. I have made no allegation or accusation, or I've formed no conclusion whatsoever.
But let's say that he is being factual, that he was junior at the time, he was not a senior counsel, and it was disclosed, and he's been removed, which I think the judge is entitled to do. Do you think that meets the standard of being asked to resign or be fired? Is it that the opposition, if it is that everything is factual, I'm just going on that premise, does it come to that standard? Is the opposition just being hyperbolic in terms of their calls and their criticism?
If it is that there's no misrepresentation, then I don't think any question of resigning arises. And that's why I keep saying I would just love for the AG to come out and just provide us the clarity and put an end to all these questions. Because as Paul said, it's the easiest thing to prove. Were you not?
He would have some documentation as to the exact date he was ascended to senior counsel status. Yeah.
And I mean, as Paul said, that's the easiest thing to prove, and that may put everything to rest and end the idle speculation. So that's all I've asked for, because I think the public deserves that, rather than, and you see, when you don't provide that clarity, you open the door to fuel, all types of, suspicions, fantasies, conspiracy theories, which we don't need in Trinidad and Tobago. We have enough of that on a daily basis. So I would think that this is something that is fairly simple to be able to clarify yea or nay. And in that regard, I have just asked if that clarity and transparency could be provided so we can all move on.
And there's already so much conjecture as to why he came in the first place to replace another attorney general. But I'm saying that in the context that the office of the attorney general is so important to the state of Trinidad and Tobago. You don't want that kind of.
It doesn't want to be. You don't want to
and you don't want clouds of uncertainty hanging over that type of office.
That's correct. That's correct. Because you see, when you are Attorney General, you are Attorney General not for a political party or for those who appointed you. You are Attorney General for all of Trinidad and Tobago. And that's something we sometimes lose sight of. The fact that your role as Attorney General, we saw William Barr yesterday in his testimony before the January 6th committee. Of course, belatedly seemed to come to the realization that, look, he's supposed to be Attorney General for all of the U.S., and that's where he said he parted ways with Trump. Of course, previously he was acting as if he was Trump's Attorney General. But that's not the role of an Attorney General. You are Attorney General for your country, not for a political party or a political leader.
Yeah. But because it's a political appointment, it gets...
there's the potential for the lines to be blurred. But you as the office holder, you must be so robustly independent and fearlessly forthright that you ought to be able to draw the lines on both sides and say, hey, listen, this is where the political line stops, and you're not going to cross it.
Yeah. Well, you're defending the legal interest of Trinidad and Tobago.
When you're defending the league, exactly.
That's what it is, of Trinidad and Tobago, not the PNM government or the UNC government, if the UNC government is in power. So you're defending the legal interest of Trinidad and Tobago and advising in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, that's the ideal. That's not always what happens. But the Law Association, of course, is going to be discussing it.
Martin, you saw that shot across the bow there, right? You didn't miss it, right? Okay. You didn't shoot too high. Just below the bow. Right, go ahead, Ragoobarsingh.
So the Law Association is discussing the matter today. But I'm not so sure. But what can the Law Association actually say at this point, Martin, in your opinion?
Well, the point is, remember, the Attorney General is the titular head of the bar. So basically, you are the de facto head of the Law Association. So therefore, if your entire body expresses a view one way or the other, then of course it must have some impact on you morally, ethically, and sometimes in actual fact. If you recall, this is not the first time we've seen, the Law Association move motions or, things of that nature. In fact, as far back as, several years ago, I think they marched against then sitting Attorney General, so it has happened. So there is the potential to create discomfort and disquiet if it is that your entire body or representatives of your entire body express a view one way or the other as to their confidence or lack thereof in you as the Attorney General.
Do you think that the Law Association, many times I've had conversations where I've argued about, I know I've had conversations and arguments with Gary Griffith about how he painted the Law Association. And because they're elected, but is it that you think that the Law Association, in your opinion, do you think it has a political lens and through which it sees stuff?
Well, the thing is, there would be persons who are politically aligned one way or the other, and they may be motivated by their political masters to, I guess, toe a line, in a particular direction. But I would want to hope that the body, in terms of the Council of the Law Association, is sufficiently robust and sufficiently diverse that it's not swayed in a political view. or one way or the other, because if that happens, then of course the public is going to lose tremendous confidence in them as a body. So one would hope that that's not the motivation at all, or the driving factor, despite the fact that persons can hold political views. And sometimes, Paul and Richard, that's sometimes something that amazes me in Trinidad and Tobago. We seem not to be able to separate our politics from principles, procedures, practices, and policies. We always tend to blur the lines, and that's something that we ought to understand the difference and say, well, hey, listen, regardless of what your political persuasion may be, if this is the principle, if this is the practice, if it's the procedure, this is the policy, then it's supposed to apply across the board.
It would be remiss of us not to have you here and ask about how's Tobago business doing? How's Tobago doing generally?
Well, the thing is, I would say that definitely there's been an uptick, and after the Easter period, there's been a definite increase. In fact, Tobago is becoming very much the party destination, the lime destination. People are flocking across here in droves. I think villas and guest houses and, small entrepreneurs are getting back into business, and, the things are definitely looking up. What I think we need to see is more of the guidance and direction from the leadership of the THA in terms of medium to long-term macroeconomic plans, policies, and procedures to ensure economic sustainability. Because, in other words, Paul, if you recall, every year, the budget for Tobago, it's like 88% is on recurrent expenditure. That's salaries, wages, paying for goods and services. You're paying this contractor, you're paying that person. So all the money just keeps going back out. So it's like you're flushing a toilet all the time.
And then you have leakage.
And then there's
and then add some leakage to that. Mm-hmm. So 88 plus 10. Right? So you're basically at 2% for development projects.
Basically. And that has been my constant cry and call upon them that, look, you need to think outside the box. I saw the Chief Secretary announced that he's increasing salaries for CPEP and URP. And while, of course, those persons are happy for that, I was hoping to see a more, innovative thinking in terms of maybe to say, well, okay, look, all right, we're going to increase your salaries. However, 20% of the workforce for CPEP and URP must be dedicated to agriculture. We're going to open up some agricultural farms. We're going to have you there working a normal day, a full day, at the increased salary, but we're going to use that to re-energize and reinvigorate the agricultural sector in Tobago. Now, that I would have been happy to see as, new forward-thinking ideas. But I guess we still have to give them time. They were new administration.
They want to do 15 seats, work whole day. Are you crazy?
Well, let's look at you. Let me ask you to put on your political analyst hat, Martin. The PDP, of course, has now sojourned to the sister island of Trinidad in terms of seeking some sort of political foothold. And of course, you're seeing videos of Watson Duke, on Nelson Street and in different areas, preaching the gospel, so to speak, of the PDP. What kind of impact do you think the PDP can have in Trinidad politics?
Well, the thing is, I think that there is potential for persons to try to capture the disaffection, dissatisfaction, the disenchantment that is out there in so many persons. And Watson Duke is a master manipulator of that type of sentiment. So he has already, I think, been able to reach out to capture those persons and in terms of some of their feelings. As to it having an effect politically, that's a different thing. In other words, you may have support, but is it support in the right areas? Is it enough support concentrated enough in a way to be able to capture a seat? That's where I don't yet see the difference being made. So in other words, you may have persons who may say, well, look, yes, I don't want A, I don't want B, so therefore I am glad there's a third option, I'm choosing that. But is it sufficient to overturn the majority to say that you have won that seat, because that's what our politics comes down to at the end of the day. It's not a question of proportional representation. We are first past the post. So in other words, it's winner take all and loser takes the fall.
Yeah, but I think they have telegraphed that they are going to be pursuing the local government elections, which is due sometime later on this year. So I suppose that will be
that's going to be a barometer of their initial impact, and I mean it's a tough one to try to make the impact on, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, because it's a short time. The National Transformation Alliance. What's your view on that? That's Gary Griffith's party. His version of the third party, National Transformation Alliance. We haven't seen who is behind it yet.
Well, exactly. So that's the thing. I was just about to say that I don't know enough about it to be able to make any comment that I could do some analysis of or disaggregation of who are the persons, the movers, the shakers behind the party. All we've seen thus far is the face of Gary Griffith, and I think he's described himself as interim political leader, which I think is a nomenclature that they adopt until they fully assume the title. But at the end of the day, we don't know who else is involved and, what are their philosophies, ideas. I mean, maybe he has put material out there and maybe I just haven't been able to get around to reading it. But the fact of the matter
do you think his popularity can because he has a certain level of popularity, certainly as the former commissioner of police. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of the country that liked him as the commissioner of police, even though the political elite didn't. Do you think that popularity can translate into votes on the ground?
It's difficult in Trinidad and Tobago. It's difficult. And I'll tell you why, Richard and Paul. The fact that you may have widespread popularity across the board, in other words, dispersed over several areas or pockets in Trinidad and Tobago, is it enough in any one constituency? Because that's what you have to think. You have to think 41. 41 is the number that has to be in your mind. Any one of those 41 constituencies, do I have enough of this popularity over and above the two established parties to be able to take away enough votes from them both, because you have to take from both of them in order to win, to be able to capture the seat? And if you don't, it doesn't matter how popular you are. You see, had it been a system of PR, then you could add up all your votes all over the country and say, well, look, in the totality, I have gotten maybe 10% or 15%, so therefore I'm entitled to 15% of the seats. It doesn't work that way. You have to win each one by one in a first past the post system. And that's where I always see the challenge for a third party. That's why, if you notice, the way it goes in Trinidad and Tobago, when parties are in opposition, they seem to have no difficulty with advocating for proportional representation. Once they get into government, they
out the window.
The beauty of first past the post, and they don't want to give that up at all.
Yep. You're very right. You're very right. Yeah. Well, Martin George, time has crept up on us, so thank you so much for the conversation this morning.
Always a pleasure.
I hope you have one a yellow t-shirt next time or a green t-shirt.
There's someone missing this morning. There's usually
Wendell? No, Wendell.
Wendell's off today.
We have Wendell assigned to other duties on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, great. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Always a pleasure.
All right, Martin, thanks.
All right, have a great day, Martin George. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
All right. And of course, that was Attorney Martin George. All right, we are up towards our 8 o'clock news.